There's a root sold by the bundle at roadside stalls from Kisumu to Kampala to Lagos, chewed by truck drivers on long journeys, steeped in tea by grandmothers, carried in the pockets of men who don't talk about why. Africans have used it for thousands of years. The British named it, in 1898, after a farmer in Natal, and right now, in the forests where it has always lived, it is disappearing faster than it can grow back. This is the story of Mukombero, and what we lose when we forget the foods that healed us. In this series, we're tracing the healing foods of our ancestors, the plants that fed and healed Africa long before supermarkets, long before pharmacies. Last time, we walked with the moringa tree. Today we go into the forest. Today we follow a vine. Botanists call it Mondia Whitei. In Kenya, Mukombero. In Uganda, Mulondo. In Ghana, Yaududu. In South Africa, where European science first laid eyes on it, the Zulu people had been harvesting it for generations. Origins and the naming story. The story of how this plant got its scientific name says everything about how African knowledge has been treated. In the late 1800s, a farmer in KwaZulu-Natal named A.S. White noticed something. The Zulu people around him kept returning to a particular climbing vine in the forest. They dug up its roots. They knew what to do with them. White was curious. He packed specimens, shipped them to botanists in England, and asked them to identify the plant. The botanists studied it. They classified it. They named it Mondia Whitei. A plant Africans had known and used for centuries became, on paper, the discovery of a colonial farmer. The Zulu name was not recorded in the scientific record. The healers who held the knowledge were not credited. White, who arguably did the least, received the legacy. This is not a strange story. This is the story of African ethnobotany. Knowledge that traveled out, science that came back, names that erased the people who knew first. Mondia Whitei is native to a huge belt of sub-Saharan Africa. It is a slow-growing climbing vine. It needs trees to live. It twines up the trunks of indigenous hardwoods, drinks the shade of the forest, and produces a thick aromatic root that has been valued by African healers for as long as anyone can remember. It is, in every sense, an indigenous African food. What it was used for, beyond the stereotype. Ask anyone in Western Kenya what Mukombero is for, and you'll likely hear one answer. It's for men. A virility tonic, an aphrodisiac, a potency herb. That answer is not wrong. But it is incomplete, and the smaller story has overshadowed the larger one. Across the continent, Mondia Whitei has been used since antiquity for far more. To restore appetite, what we now call anorexia. To ease stress and lift low mood. To treat bilharzia, that parasitic burden of so many African childhoods. To soothe general aches and pains. To bring strength back to bodies thinned by illness, work, or grief. Healers gave it to the rundown. Mothers grated it into porridge for children who would not eat. Older women steeped it in hot water for themselves at the end of a long day. It was a tonic in the deepest sense of that word. Something that brings the body back to itself. The flavor explains a lot of its versatility. Mukombero tastes like nothing else, and people reach for comparisons that all fall short. Vanilla, ginger, licorice, root beer. None of these capture it. The truth is sweet but earthy. Aromatic, a small warming on the tongue, a perfume that lingers. That aroma matters. In recent years, researchers at the Kenya Forestry Research Institute have been formulating dried Mukombero powder as a natural flavoring, a kind of indigenous vanilla. It opens up an entirely different future for this plant than the men's tonic market that has overshadowed everything else. The healing chemistry. So what does science actually say is inside this root? The chemistry is rich, but it is not yet fully mapped. Researchers have identified compounds in Mondia Whitei with antimicrobial activity, the ability to slow or kill bacteria and fungi. Compounds with anti-inflammatory effects. Compounds with anthelmintic activity, meaning they work against intestinal worms and parasites, which lines up exactly with the traditional use against bilharzia. Several studies have looked at the aphrodisiac claims. A 2010 paper in the Journal of Pharmacology and Toxicology pointed to potential applications for erectile dysfunction. though the mechanism is not yet understood. We need to be honest here. Most of the published research has been done on rodents and isolated organ tissue. The full mechanisms remain unclear. The human clinical trials that would conclusively prove the traditional claims have not yet been done at scale. Traditional knowledge tells us Mukombero works. Modern science is still catching up, study by study, to explain how. This is the pattern with almost every plant medicine ever rediscovered by laboratories. The healers were first. The white coats come later. What is much clearer is the nutritional profile. Mukombero root contains vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin E, minerals, magnesium, zinc, iron, calcium. Protein. It is, in the technical sense, a functional food. Not a drug, not a supplement pill. A food that does something. And this is where Mukombero shifts in your mind. Not a stimulant chewed by men in long-haul trucks. A nutrient-dense, mineral-rich, mood-supporting tonic with a story going back centuries. A food, like garlic, like ginger, that earned its place in human medicine because it works on the whole system. Not on one organ, not on one symptom, on the whole person. That is what an ancient healing food is. The cultural life of Mukombero. To understand Mukombero, you have to understand its second life. Not in the forest where it grows, in the marketplace where it travels, in Kakamega, in Kisumu, in Busia, in the Matatu stages where traders move through with bags slung over shoulders. Mukombero is everywhere. Folk economy, whispered remedy, gift, dare, a small fortune in someone's pocket on a Tuesday morning. And the gender story here is interesting. It is mostly women who sell it. It is mostly men who are assumed to buy it. But ask the women. Ask the mama mabogas. Ask the elder herbalists. Ask the ones who actually know. And they'll tell you about giving it to pregnant women for nausea, to elderly people for appetite, to themselves for energy after a long day on their feet. The reduction of Mukombero to a sex tonic is, in many ways, a modern phenomenon. The older knowledge is much more whole. It belongs to mothers and grandmothers as much as it ever belonged to anyone else. Across the continent, the names change, but the relationship is the same. Mulondo in Uganda, Mukombe and Mukombero in Kenya, Yadudu in Ghana, Omurondwa in parts of East Africa, a continent agreeing in dozens of languages on the same route. This is what indigenous food sovereignty actually looks like. Plants that crossed no oceans, knowledge that crossed no borders, a green thread woven from the Cape to the Sahel. The crisis. But here is the part of the story that should worry you. Mukombero is disappearing. In Kakamega Forest, the last significant tropical rainforest remnant in Kenya, the historical heartland of Mondia Whitei in East Africa, researchers walking the trails today find drying, uprooted stems where thriving vines once climbed. Three forces are killing it. The first is how it's harvested. Mukombero's value lives in its root. To get the root, harvesters dig up the entire plant. The vine dies on the spot. And Mukombero is slow. It can take years to mature back to a harvestable size. When demand spikes, the forest empties faster than the forest can replenish. The second force is the loss of the forest itself. Mukombero is a climber. It cannot live alone. It needs trees, indigenous trees specifically, to twine up toward the sun. When the trees of Kakamega are cut for timber, for charcoal, for cropland, the Mukombero that climbed them dies with them. The vine and the forest are one organism, and you cannot save one without the other. The third force is climate. The forest is drier than it used to be. The rainfall patterns that Mukombero evolved with are shifting. Plants that need shade and moisture and continuity are losing all three at once. Researchers from Masinde Muliro, University of Science and Technology, together with the Kenya Forest Service, are racing the clock. They are planting indigenous trees and Mukombero vines together, week after week, by the thousands. The Kenya Wildlife Service now classifies Mukombero as a priority species, and farming it commercially requires special permits. The plant is not yet extinct, but the trajectory, if nothing changes, is clear. Hope and action. So what can be done? The most promising approach is happening on small farms along the forest edge. Farmers are being trained to grow Mukombero inside agroforestry systems, planting the vine alongside endangered indigenous trees like Prunus africana so that vine and tree support each other and a single homestead becomes, in miniature, a piece of the rainforest. Sustainable harvest, living relationship. The forest's logic scaled down to a backyard. The Kenya Forestry Research Institute and ICIPE, the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, have been developing standardized Mukombero powder products, moving the plant from informal roadside trade into formal supply chains, where the value flows back to the farmers who steward it, not just the middlemen who move it. And the most important shift is the slowest one, the change in the story we tell about this plant. Not men's herb, not miracle aphrodisiac, not the wink and nudge of a roadside transaction, but ancestral food, functional nutrition, a cultural inheritance worth protecting. That is the story that saves a plant, and it is a story each of us can carry. There is something we should sit with at the end of a story like this. Mukombero is not lost yet. Garlic crossed oceans from Central Asia. Ginger left Southeast Asia and conquered the world. They became, between them, the two most used healing roots in human history. Mukombero, just as old, just as powerful, never left home, and now risks vanishing in it. The question, in the end, is not really about one plant. It is about all the plants, all the foods our grandmothers knew the names of that we can no longer pronounce, all the wild greens, the indigenous grains, the forest fruits replaced, in 1 or 2 generations, by imported staples and packaged snacks. A forgotten food is not just a forgotten flavor, it is a forgotten relationship with the land, with the body, with the lineage that fed you. The good news is that forgetting can be reversed, knowledge can be reclaimed, roots can be replanted. Mukombero is asking to be remembered. If this story moved you, share it with someone older than you and someone younger than you. Buy from the woman at the market who knows what her grandmother knew. Plant something indigenous. And subscribe. There are more forgotten foods waiting on this channel. This has been Mukombero, the root we nearly forgot, the root we can still remember.